Welcome back to Native Strength. I'm your host, Hypatia Lee. We're going to talk about finding our true self. This teaching is called the 5 Movements of the Book of Life. It comes to us from the Mayans. Actualizing our true spirit personality and breaking the molds of our image makers is called the great work by our elders. This will show us how to learn through pleasure instead of through pain. Many people are unhappy, even though their life is really pretty good compared to others. They have a roof over their head, a closet with clothes, and some food in the refrigerator. There are many people who dream of a life like this. But it's not that these people are sad for no reason at all. They're sad because they feel like they're incomplete, not loved for who they truly are, not appreciated. They're sad because they have to spend a lot of time pretending to be someone they aren't, so people will love and accept them. This has to do with the molding, sculpting, and armoring you've heard me mention in other episodes. We feel like we don't know ourselves. We can barely remember who we are, our true personality, before we were changed into what our caregivers wanted us to be. In the very back of our mind, we remember the path we planned before we were born. We know that we have the tools we need for this path, but either they've been deemed unacceptable or our entire sacred dream has, and so we're depressed. Our image makers, meaning our caregivers and teachers, molded us into a person who would be acceptable by society. This means that part of our personality was deemed unacceptable and had to be buried. Knowing that part of us is unacceptable is very disconcerting. No wonder we're unhappy. Now, we all have to fit in with society. We can't take things just because we want them or push people out of the way in Walmart when they wander out in front of us. But it's more than that. We've been taught that we can't show our joys and sorrows at certain times, that we have to pretend to like things we really don't. And most importantly, all of this has pushed our sacred dream, the plan our soul made for this lifetime, into the far recesses of our mind. How do we overcome this? How do we break free of this molding and sculpting to find our true self? Our anchor, or core personality, is a creation of the image makers. This is what our caregivers want us to be. It's not our true personality. It's what emerged when we tried to fit in. There are 3 common types of core personalities. We become either a do-gooder, a space cadet, or a jerk. Swifty used to call the jerks farts, and this may be more accurate. You'll see what I mean in a minute. Do-gooders sit in the southeast and are overly concerned with what people think of them. These are overachievers. Because they live to impress others, they look for places where they can be of service, so they're perfect assistants and secretaries. They also like applause and might find themselves in show business. This personality often comes with a great sense of humor. These people are very compassionate and well-mannered, and they follow through on details. These are some of the nicest people you'll ever meet, but they have one huge problem. They can't function alone. Someone has to direct them and give them purpose. If there isn't anyone for them to impress or help out, they lose their drive. Their focus is on others so that they won't have to face their own pain. Their fear is being wrong or being disliked, so they're overly concerned with rules and laws. Now, this presents a problem for them because they don't know which laws to follow. The way for a do-gooder to break out of this mold and find their true self is to realize that the only ones they have to impress is themselves and the Creator. They have to find sacred law and abide by that at all costs. This is done by communicating with the inner elders. When these people follow the written law and it goes against morality, they have great inner turmoil. This will never be resolved until they give away the need to be accepted by others. It may appear as though they're worried about taking care of everyone else, but in actuality, they're more worried about what everyone thinks of them. We all have a needy child, a part of us that wants to be loved and accepted. The do-gooder feeds their needy child by getting recognition for their good deeds. Space cadets sit in the Southwest. These people appear to be indifferent about most things. They spend a lot of time on wishful thinking and daydreams. This results in an exceptionally high opinion of themselves. They're waiting for someone to discover how wonderful they are. They have a tendency to talk about how great they could be if only given the chance. But when they're actually given an opportunity, they rarely rise to the occasion. They also have a tendency to procrastinate, and that's one of the biggest reasons they fail. Sometimes they feel like they have special psychic abilities, but these can actually be attributed to misunderstood physics. They take a long time to make decisions. Others are often frustrated that it takes them so long. They promise all sorts of wonderful things, but have a hard time following through. These people dream both when asleep and awake, and they have a hard time staying in the here and now. They tend to not want to step out of their comfort zone. Once they've made up their mind, the facts are irrelevant. This is the kind of person who often forgets they have obligations. Sometimes they need to be rescued when they've gotten behind in their responsibilities or neglected their health. In order to feel good about themselves, they pick and choose which rules and laws to follow. This makes them feel like they're a righteous person. These people need to accept themselves, blemishes and all, and adhere only to sacred law. They also need to learn how to follow through and stop procrastinating. Do-gooders frequently have relationships with space cadets because it feeds their ego to be the one who rescues them. Space cadets can rely on the do-gooders to cover their tracks when they drop the ball. The problem is that the space cadets will grow to resent this. Jerks, or farts, are not nice people at all. They're petty, jealous, vindictive, and self-centered. The whole world revolves around them. Their conversations center around themselves, and all of their associates must conform to their standards. These people are naturals at leading, but they don't like to be put in that position. They're very uncomfortable with everyone else's emotion. If you see someone freak out when somebody starts to cry or get angry, see if they check the other boxes. They may be a jerk. These people are great storytellers and liars. Every negative thing they fear about themselves, they project onto others. They're also great manipulators and have a tendency toward a sociopathic personality. They fight against all rules and laws, and unless they change, they destroy themselves and everyone who loves them. The jerk has to learn what sacred law is and stick to it. They have to discover that their self-worth has to come from inside and not from others. If they aren't disciplined in this endeavor, they can get lost in their own delusion and hurt everyone and everything in their path. The secret is no one is as critical of them as they are of themselves. But we don't see that. We just see a bull in a china shop trying to convince us how great he is. He's actually trying to convince himself. By looking to others for his validation, he creates a self-fulfilling prophecy of failure and doom. Now, there are other minor labels we assign ourselves in life, like daddy's little girl, the smartest one at work, or the sex goddess. And this can pose major problems when we outgrow them. But the do-gooder, space cadet, and jerk are the three main personality types that these minor labels stem from. We often feel as though our very life depends on fitting in with society and becoming the person our image makers want us to be. There have been countless times in history when this has literally been the case. It's this fear of rejection and death that keeps us believing that we have to pretend to be something we aren't in order to be worthy of love. It's very common for people to reach old age before they ever realize their true self. By this time, it's often too late to do the things their soul had planned, to experience life to its fullest, and to grow. Many people tell themselves they don't care what other people think. But actions speak louder than words. These people still work hard to look good, not to be healthy, but to be attractive to others. They can't stand to be alone for more than a day or two at best. And their inner adults are always comparing themselves to others. These feelings are clues that you're still trapped in worrying about what others think and need to crack the mirror of self-reflection to find your true self. This is the key to self-esteem, being loved for who you truly are. Once we find our true nature, we'll be a formless personality. People will project a personality onto you because they have a need for you to fit in. They need to make you fit in one box or another. They want to categorize us. When you know yourself and have a formless personality, you're unpredictable and uncontrollable by others. I've often been told that people can't figure me out. I don't act like they thought I would. I follow sacred law. I'm not concerned with what others think of me. I have no need for their approval, and I really don't seek it. People aren't used to that at all. Once we become a formless core personality, we're able to re-sculpt ourselves. To do that, though, we have to let go of everything we ever thought we were. Then we begin to reintegrate the parts that are of our true nature, who we were meant to be in this lifetime as planned by our higher self before we were born. This means, for example, that if we were raised in a family that loves classical music, and we believe we love classical music also, we have to be willing to cut that out of our life for a while. If that is a part of our true personality, we'll miss it. And then we can bring it back into our life knowing that this is something we really like, not something we said we liked just to be accepted. By breaking the mirror of self-reflection and finding our true self, we've found true self-love. We don't have to contort ourselves in order to fit in and be worthy of love. We know that we're not just one personality, but many, and we can choose who to be at will depending on the situation. Now we can wear the mask of a bully in controlled folly to protect ourselves and others, and not buy into the lie that we really are a bully by nature. We know better because we've taken the time to find out our true nature. This also means we can adapt and wear any mask necessary in order to fit in. This allows us to be comfortable with many different types of people, to see the world, and to learn much more in our short time here on Earth. This is the controlled folly I discussed in the Overcoming Bullies episodes. For example, if I need to show anger to get the job done, I can do that without raising my blood pressure. I can use controlled folly to reflect bullying behavior right back to its original owner. To break the mirror of self-reflection and find our true nature, we have to be willing to step outside of our comfort zone. And this is where we get into those little deaths that I've talked about before. For example, Overcoming a fear is a little death. There are 4 steps or movements to becoming a formless personality. We don't experience these movements one at a time, and they don't necessarily happen in order. There are many different forms of these movements or steps. The one I'm going to share is called the breakdown process. The first movement is in the South. This stands for releasing your dependency on getting love and acceptance from others. You have to let go of the need for approval. Now, I'm not talking about crazy illegal things. I'm talking about showing your true likes and dislikes, not being afraid to share who you really are, and not going along with things just because everyone else does. We often hear the voices of our caregivers or teachers in our head. These are memories of how we've been scolded for unacceptable behavior in the past. These memories are not pleasant, but full of pain and embarrassment. To erase these old tapes, we have to change our perspective. For example, let's say we have memories of being told how slow we are and that everyone always has to wait on us. Let's go back to when this tape was first recorded. If we step out of our body and observe, we see that it was always said by a parent when they were in a hurry. Perhaps we were the youngest of several children, and they were all faster because they were older. They got ready to go quicker, and they walked faster because their legs were longer. Now that we've observed the origin of this tape objectively, we see that we were told we were slow because we were compared to older siblings. But we're not the small baby anymore. We get ready just as fast as the next person, and our legs are adult-sized and able to walk quickly. Replaying this painful tape is not only a waste of time, it's completely inaccurate. Nothing good can come of it. If we have never taken the time to examine this from a different perspective, not the little girl trying to keep up with the older kids, we wouldn't have seen the truth. Now we can erase this tape because it doesn't apply. Do you see what I mean? People generally have one of 5 reactions to any stimulus. They either love it or hate it, like it or dislike it, or they're simply neutral and don't care. Our natural tendency is to want to be loved or at least liked. Many times we would prefer to be disliked or even hated to being completely ignored. This is especially true of young children. We can even see them misbehave on purpose just to get attention sometimes. This need for attention comes from our needy child. The needy child is the part of us that has a need for acceptance from our image makers. We want them to be pleased with our behavior as we think this is the same thing as love. As a mature adult, we know we can care deeply for people without having to agree with them on everything. The needy child doesn't know this yet. Our inner children don't know this yet either. As adults who've been sculpted to fit in, we also may not know this deep down in our subconscious. So remember, just because someone agrees with your opinions or actions doesn't mean they love you or even like you. We've all seen adults that feel like all of their friends have to agree with them on everything. Our family members may be like this too, but we don't have to be like they are. If they don't like us for being true to ourselves, we're probably better off without them in our lives anyway. You see, this is the source of many people's depression. They feel like they have to continue the facade of being someone they aren't just so others will love them. Since they know they're covering up their true personality, they're sad because they think they aren't worthy of love. So all of this pretending to fit in really hasn't been worth it. They may be accepted by others, but they aren't accepted by themselves. It's better to be yourself and let the cards fall where they may. If friends and family members can't accept you for who you really are, you're better off without them. The love we get from ourselves is far stronger and more important than any acceptance from an outside source. So now that we've taken the first step and gotten rid of the need to fit in, let's move on. Do you remember me talking about how in life we go through many deaths? When a woman gives birth, the pregnancy dies. When we get married, our life as a single person dies. When we get our first real job, our life as a student dies. Do you see how these little deaths can be a rite of passage in life? The big death of the body is no different. There is no real death, only a change in worlds. So the second step is to make death an ally. Death is just the natural progression of life. We can't be afraid of progress. After all, it's inevitable. This is what I mean when I say we make death an ally. We aren't afraid to let go and move on. This means that we don't blame others for our pain. This will give us control over our life. We realize that all change is inevitable. We accept change with open arms. Some things may feel like they're unjust, but we have to look at the world differently. It may not be justice, but it just is. I was taught that 80% of what happens is karma. The other 20% just is. If we accept life as it comes and not get bogged down on who's to blame, we can learn our lessons and move on much faster. Being prepared for the future and avoiding catastrophe doesn't always mean placing blame for every little thing that just happens to not work out. Sometimes it just is. The third step is to stop the world. By that, I mean we are fully in the here and now. This can feel like freezing time so that we can examine our life in peace. Life happens at a very fast pace. If we never take the time to examine it, we'll keep making the same mistakes. Turn off the phone. Tune out the noise. Let go of the guilt, blame, and shame, and simply be one with self. Take the time to communicate with our inner elders, children, and adults. We have to let go of the attachments to the 5 reactions. Our goal is to be at the center. This way, we can let go of our visceral reactions and see that there are many paths to truth. When we're fully awakened to pure truth, we can better recognize the lies and twisted realities we encounter in life. Now, this doesn't mean we don't care when we see injustice. It means that we know how to pick our battles. Even though something may touch our heart with sadness, we can let it go if there's nothing we can do to change it, because nothing good can come from an attachment to this memory and feeling. Now, this takes a lot of practice. There are 2 vital points to this step. First, you have to be fully aware that the valid truth that you perceive is not what actually is. This allows you to change your frame of reference, to have multiple viewing points. Secondly, you have to understand that no matter what you're doing or have done in the past, it's the only thing that you know or knew to do at that moment. In other words, you did the best you could, and it has no bearing on what you're going to do next. You can choose to free yourself from any expectations or patterns. You stop the world, letting go of all guilt, blame, and shame. This frees you to start a new world if you choose to. We dive deep from the conscious mind to the subconscious, to the unconscious, to discover the collective unconscious. This is where you'll see glimpses of the possible futures and what you can do to dance in harmony with that. We can't change the past, only learn from it. There's no sense in living life for others. We can never please them because what they seek comes from inside. So we have to live life for ourselves. Selfness is not selfishness. If we're a caretaker, this may seem strange to us, but if we don't take care of ourselves first, we won't have anything left to give to our kids. It's like the flight attendant who tells you to put on your oxygen mask first so you won't pass out and will be able to help your kids with theirs. The fourth step to breaking the mold and finding your true self is waking up or controlling the dream. Our life is a dream that we planned on the other side before we were born. We're fully awake when we're on the other side, but we can also awaken in our life dream through practice. This step or movement shows us that our dreams are real. With total open communication with our inner self, we begin to fully experience our power to manifest the life we choose. This puts us in harmony with the highest power of the universe. We can accept karma as a teacher so that we can reach total harmony. We discover the blessed way and we strengthen our connection to the Great Spirit. We become aware of how we've been sculpted into an obedient student, businessman, or whatever. We realize how we've armored ourselves from the pain of being sculpted into something we aren't. We discover that by protecting ourselves from the pain, we've also denied ourselves pleasure. In the fifth and final movement, we break the mold of who our image makers wanted us to be and step free into our own life. We realize that we've always been and we always will be. Our soul is eternal. This is the enlightenment of assuming self-authority, and it makes us feel like a weight has been lifted. We'll walk tall because we aren't bogged down with caring about what everyone thinks about us anymore. We can choose to live in an ascended state. We know we're being true to ourselves, and this brings us inner peace. It puts us in direct communication with our great teacher, our higher self, our creator. To know we are okay without the approval of others means we are worthy in our original form, and we've learned to love ourselves. Thank you for watching Native Strength.
Oh,